Good morning. So what wasn't part of that introduction is I have a couple hats I wear. One is my lawyer hat, where I'm also deeply involved in EV space and other things of that nature, and super excited about that. I also am the vice chair of Launch Tennessee and have had the great fortune of being part of that organization and looking at what's developed over the state over all of these years. And just to say, we are so excited to have this conference here to talk about smart mobility in Tennessee, to look at all of these elements that have come together. I was excited coming in to talk about that and to hear from two of the visionary leaders who have been so much at the forefront of that. But then just talking to you over the last day and a half and learning all of these things going on, I thought I knew a lot. I don't know half of what I should know. It is so exciting what's going on. So we're so excited to have you here. But really, our goal today is to really set the tone for the rest of the day. You're going to hear a lot of the great things going on. But what's the foundation of that? We're going to spend a little time talking about how we got here. And we're going to talk a little bit about the state of play, what's going on right now, kind of from a global perspective. And then what's the vision going ahead? And really, there's no two better people to talk about that than the two people sitting to my left who have been so involved in it and literally are the key to making all of this happen. If you look at all of the pieces we have, great leadership is what's going to make this happen. So I'm so excited that Commissioner Healy and President Boyd are here to fill you in. So President Boyd, I'm going to kick the first question to you to start us off, maybe putting back your ECD hat from a few years ago when you were so involved in recruiting transportation companies and telling the story of the state. Can you set the stage for how we got here? How is it that Tennessee is at this place at this time?
Well, thanks, Bruce. It's great to see you again. Bruce and I got to work together in Launch Tennessee many years ago, and I appreciate your great service there. Thank you for that overly generous introduction about all the things that I know. I now set an expectation.
Give
I'm
me
not sure that
full
I'll
credit,
be able to
full
keep up
credit.
to, but we'll do our best. Actually, before answering your question, I just want to give a shout out to Hall Strategies, TENNSMART, TDOT, FedEx, Nissan, everybody that helped put this thing together. Our goal, and sometime in the very near future, Tennessee will be the epicenter for research in mobility, supporting the electric car industry and beyond. And when we look back, it could be when they say, what was the catalyst? When did all that begin? And it could be because of this event. I wasn't sure what to expect when I came here yesterday, but seeing all the different people that are here that are passionate about making these things happen, and then seeing all the connections. We'll talk about this maybe a bit later, but how we're working, there's lots of different efforts to try to bring people together. But even on our best day, we didn't know about all the people in this room that were doing so many great things. So just the connections that are happening here today, I think one day we'll look back and this could be the catalyst that made Tennessee #1 in the country for technology and the EV space. So to answer your question, another shout out, I'll say, for those that are relatively new to the state, I know there's some here that have heard all of this, but for those that might be new to our state, I'll give a shout out to Lamar Alexander. If it wasn't for Lamar Alexander, none of us would be here today. At least we would be here talking about this. Some years ago, Governor Alexander went to Japan to recruit Nissan to the state of Tennessee. And some of you have heard this story, so again, I apologize if you had. But so he goes into Nissan and says he's from Tennessee, and they kind of give him a blank look like, well, where the heck is Tennessee? We know where New York is, we know where California is, we have no idea where Tennessee is. And rather than bringing out a conventional map, he had a map that showed the United States at night. And when you show the United States at night, you see all the lights. And if you look, there's this huge concentration of lights around the eastern seaboard, and right in the center of all the lights was Tennessee. And he used that as a diagram, circled Tennessee, and says, we're right in the center of where all your customers are. And that was his winning argument. There's a whole lot more that had to happen before that.
I think there was some Jack Daniels there.
There was probably some Jack Daniels too.
I think there was some Jack Daniels, but they know where that is.
That's true. It was very successful, and for that we managed to bring Nissan into our state. As you may know, Nissan, I talked to some of the folks from Nissan yesterday. This is my story, I'm sticking to it, but at 550,000 cars at least a couple of years ago, a year, that made them the largest manufacturer of cars in the history of North America, more than River Rouge ever did, right here in Tennessee. Then a few years later, we got General Motors, we got a Volkswagen, something that I was involved in back in the day as commissioner. I was trying to preserve and develop this big mega site out in West Tennessee. We had a lot of doubters. Most people said nobody will ever move out there. Nothing's ever going to happen. We should turn it into ag research land. But the governor continued to make investment. Governor Lee did as well. And as we all know, after 15 years of development and patience and trying, we were able to get Blue Oval City, which is going to transform West Tennessee. So to say all that, we are now one of the leading states in automobile manufacturing, but even more importantly, obviously Blue Oval City is all electric vehicles. Volkswagen's moving to 50%. Our other OEMs are also moving to a large production of EVs. Within the next 3 to 4 years, if everybody is able to do what they plan to do, Tennessee will be the #1 state in the country in the manufacture of electric vehicles. Last comment about where we're at, then I'll stop. But when I was commissioner of ECD, it's great having all this manufacturing, but as a person that's grown up in business, I know that it's far better to have your design next to your manufacturing. But unfortunately in the state of Tennessee, we had no engineering, no research, no Nissan. We're thankful for what we've got here. So thank you guys that are in the audience. We're thankful for the manufacturing, but all the engineering was in Michigan. In Volkswagen, all the engineering was in Germany. We didn't have any of the engineering, so we set out at that time to try to bring more of the design to our state. And that's, I guess, I'll stop at that, but then we'll maybe wait to talk about the future later, where we go from there. But
No,
that kind of brings us up to the
fabulous, fabulous. So, Commissioner, with that kind of backdrop, you have a unique perspective, all these pieces coming together. Can you give us a little bit of kind of your perspective, kind of the history of how all of this came together?
Yeah, thanks, Bruce. And like Randy, this is awesome. I mean, it's great to see this group of people in this room, and TDOT certainly happy to be, proud to be a sponsor of this. And so, really appreciate. I mean, it's great to be together in person, right? Finally, we're able to do that. And so, I want to divert just a moment, Bruce, and tell you something that happened this morning that I think really demonstrates why we're here. And I got a text this morning. Everything's okay. We got a text this morning from our regional office saying that one of our workers on I-75 got hit this morning by a drunk driver while he was on the job. And he's at the hospital. They think he's fine, I think. So we're fortunate and blessed for that. But it just demonstrates we're here to talk about a lot of the benefits and oftentimes we think about the luxuries that connectivity and mobility, but it's also about safety, and it is certainly safety is something that our department it's not a program, it's not numbers, it's a mindset in how we're operating. And so I don't want to start off on the down note. I want to start off on a positive note. Everything's okay, but I do think we all need to remember that a huge part of what we're doing here and the benefits of technology and connectivity all lead to safety as well, and so that's huge. Certainly, appreciate everybody that's part of this, and it can't. It's one thing if you have one company or one organization, but to have so many people consolidated here under this cause, I think it really says something for where we are now in this place. And I think that this meeting and this group, as Randy said, I think certainly is that point that we can all look to say we're going in the right direction, but we need to do more, and that's certainly what we want to do. Bruce talked about uncharted waters as we were talking at the beginning, and I think that I see it more as evolutionary, because we really find ourselves in a place that I think we kind of were back in the 70s and 80s with Governor Alexander and what he was trying to do. And so at that time, we were trying to create a place for manufacturing in Tennessee that would attract people from all over the globe. And he did that with Nissan. And I think that if you think about it and where we are now and where we were then, a lot of that demand for mobility and demand for connectivity, though a little bit in a different way than what we describe it today, was the result of our interstate system. How many people in the room were here in 1956? I wasn't quite, but close. So not very many people. And so Interstate Act of 1956 was passed that created an interstate that fundamentally changed the way we're connected in this country. And so where we are today, in many ways, I think here in Tennessee, with the growth that came out of that phase, is where we were then. And I think we've got every bit the opportunity to take advantage of where we are today and what is yet to come as a result of that. But it didn't just happen. I think the important thing was the Governor Alexander did have a strategy. You had a strategy to deal with the mega site and to keep that mega site alive. And I would just say that I'd be remiss if we didn't look back and think of what you did to make sure that we did retain that site, and also the work of your counterparts with Senator Hagerty, and certainly with our Commissioner Bobby Roth, because Bobby definitely had the vision and the strategy to stick with it, and now with our Commissioner Stuart McWhorter. And so we have been fortunate in this state to have leadership that provided not just a dream, but also a strategy to get there. And so we went on beyond that, as you all know, to GM, to Volkswagen, and who would have dreamed that a few months ago we would be kind of in a cornfield in West Tennessee announcing Blue Oval that will fundamentally transform forever for the good of West Tennessee. And so what an opportunity. But we also know that with opportunities come challenges, right? And so I think the important thing for us now at this inflection point, for me, is that if we want to continue to attract those good jobs to Tennessee, we've got to invest in infrastructure. We got to invest in research to get there. If we want to continue to create an environment where our young people who grow up in the rural areas of West Tennessee can grow up, go to school, raise their families, and stay in the communities that they were born in, then we've got to invest in infrastructure and research in Tennessee. And so to me, that's why we're here. That's why we're here today. We have so much opportunity that we can take advantage of, and so I think we just got to lean into it. So thank you for all you've done.
Thank you, Butch.
Yeah.
Appreciate that.
Well, thank you, Commissioner. So I want to just pivot off your word opportunity, because if you look at what is sitting in front of us, I mean, the stats of, less than 5% of the cars right now coming off the lines are EV. Within just a few years, the hope is to be 25 to 50%, depending upon who you are talking with and what their strategic plans are. To support that kind of significant growth in one of the major industries of the world, we need to do an awful lot, and you are all involved in that. And this panel is really to say, why should Tennessee be the leader in all of that? What are the resources we have now to build from? And what ultimately is the vision going forward? So I want to just pause. This whole conference is about illustrating the resources. But now that we have two of the key leaders putting all of this together, I think it would be helpful for people to understand kind of how you view the resources, what your role is in fostering those resources, and then we'll get ultimately to the vision of what's possible and how we become number one. Go ahead.
Oh, well, thanks.
Yeah.
I'll start and just maybe share one attempt that we tried about 7 years ago to make Tennessee a leader in research in the auto industry, and then talk a little bit about what we're going to try to do this time around, how it'll be different. So I had this brilliant idea back in 2015. You'll know in a moment that it wasn't very brilliant, but I thought I had this brilliant idea back in 2015. What we would do is buy the Nashville Motor Speedway, and we'd create this huge test track right outside of Nashville near our big automotive OEMs. They had about 800 acres that we could develop into a science and research park. And we had another 300 or 400 acres, which all the universities could build campuses and train the people that would do the research and do the work. And everything came along great. We had an agreement to buy the land, and then we hired Deloitte to go do some research and find out what our customers wanted. And turns out there was absolutely no value in a big circular concrete oval in the auto industry, so that whole idea canceled. So what we're going to do differently this time is ask our customers first. So we've got a consulting firm that I want to thank TVA, Vanderbilt, Oak Ridge National Labs, and my university, UT, that have gone in to hire to help us create a vision for how we can become a leader in the research side of the EV industry. And they've begun the research, and this is, by the way, at the request of Governor Lee about a year ago. So it's all interesting and fine to have these conversations about things we want the state to invest in, but if the governor's not supportive, then it's kind of futile. So it started, I guess, with the governor, and the governor said, we need to figure out how we can become a leader. University of Tennessee said, we'll take the lead in trying to come up with a proposal, join with our partners that I just mentioned, and then started putting together a task force, which we started about 6 months ago. Brought a lot of people together to begin to get input. The consulting firm is now going around talking to all of our customers, the OEMs, the tier 1 and tier 2s, to get their input on the things that we need. And the thing that's been great about this conference has been realizing just how many other people are involved that we didn't even consider. For example, my good friend Lang Wiseman at Baker Donaldson was talking to me just yesterday about the work that they're doing around the legal side. I mean, I didn't think about it, but we need to have the legal teams involved as well, because there's so much of this that's going to require new laws and regulations, and so we need to have a broader group. But anyway, so this time it's going to be more inclusive, and we're looking forward to hopefully having a proposal in the near future.
Great. Fabulous. Commissioner, you want to talk about some of the assets?
I'll jump into that a little bit. I think that if I had to put it in one word, you kind of said it, Randy. It's collaboration. I mean, we've got to pull all the disparate parts together of people who have an interest and set that strategy that we talked about. I mean, I think that we certainly, from a department point of view, and I see a lot of faces out here from people at TDOT. Our people do a great job of the piece that we're working on, and we certainly I talked about investing in infrastructure and investing in the technology side of that to be a catalyst is, I think, we've already demonstrated that, but I think it's going to be absolutely essential as we go forward. And so I think the department can be a huge factor. I think the research that UT is doing and what we're doing in UT Chattanooga with CUIP, those things can be a great asset and a great resource. But really, I'm going to put it back to the people in the room too, because the government can't do it. I mean, it'll only be successful with your brains and your investment along with us. So I think we can be that catalyst. I think we can help with research. We can help with investment. But really, it's going to take your brain power and your investment also to really make this all work.
No, agreed. And it's interesting from my perspective in the conversations we've had, leading up to the panel and the conversations we've had at the law firm. You talk about language. We do spend a lot of time trying to understand the entire...
I've spent a lot of time with Lane too. By the way.
It's a common thing we're talking about. No, so it is amazing what's going on. Wearing my my Launch Tennessee hat too.
Yeah.
You look around and you look at things like capital. So suddenly there's SSBCI money, $70 million to deploy in early stage companies and growing companies. There is leadership and we talked about the leadership not at UT alone, but at TVA has changed in Vanderbilt, and all of this coming together at the right time. But then you talk about, I love that last presentation, Cisco. Could be anywhere in the world, but they're here. And there's a confluence of why they're here, but bringing all of these things together. And there are projects, and I think you'll talk a little bit about some of the things going on at UT and across the state as they build into vision. But you think about the I-24 project where they're studying the traffic patterns going back and forth and how those might be impacted by things like artificial intelligence. And then you walk to talk about, to the Gresham folks who are there, figuring out who's getting stressed and how do those connect. So are there things across the state that excite you in terms of crown jewels that you want to point to? ORNL, for example, we haven't spent a lot of time talking about, and we should spend the next 2 hours talking about.
Yeah, this is a really tricky question, because if I start talking about, if I mention 3 or 4 crown jewels, I'll see everybody else in the room that I didn't mention right afterwards.
There will be a line, for sure.
I'll just mention a couple that come to mind, but as when this team got together to look at what resources that we had across the state, it's astounding all the work that's going on across the state. Butch just mentioned CUIP. So Mina Sertepi in Chattanooga has something called the Center for Urban Informatics and Progress, which has a smart grid downtown Chattanooga where they've got all kinds of sensors measuring traffic and people and so many different things that help us to understand how to create a more efficient system in a city grid. And we're now looking at doing that potentially in other cities. I was visiting yesterday with the folks from Bridgestone who gave the presentation, and went over to their booth, and they said, we need to find some place in the state that's doing a smart grid in the urban cities. Well, do you know about Chattanooga? So we made that connection yesterday. But there's Oak Ridge National Labs has the Center for Transportation and Research, and they're doing some really great work around energy storage. There's a whole lot of other projects there. You mentioned our great friends at Vanderbilt and the work going on at I-24. So all across the state, there's nodes of excellence, and our key is to bring them all together.
Right. And Commissioner, part of what makes this such an opportunity but such a challenge, you have public, private, academic all coming together. From your perspective, are there aspects you can point to that will facilitate this collaboration? And
yeah, well, I think one of the biggest aspects of that is private sector involvement and demand from customers. I mean, you know, if you think about what customers want in a car today, it's totally different, obviously, than it was at the advent of the interstate in 1956 or in the 60s and 70s as it was built out. So when I think about, you ask about being excited about what's going on. I mean, y'all both mentioned it, but you know, the I-24 motion partnership that we've got with Vanderbilt and Gresham, the I-24 corridor project that we have, 294 ultra high definition cameras sitting there on that road so that we'll be able to know the movement of every vehicle and how it reacts with the infrastructure around it. And the lessons learned from that will continue to birth other investments and other knowledge as we go forward as to how to better do that so that we are able to get more throughput through our existing capacity. And so, you know, that's one of the things that's clearly evident for me is that, I mean, we're going to continue to add lanes, we're going to continue to add capacity, but if we're really going to be successful in this country for mobility and access, we've got to figure out how to get more throughput with what we have now. We're constrained in right-of-way many places, and so these kind of projects like we're doing on I-24, I think are shedding a lot of light on the brightness of our future of being able to do that. And what we're doing with Launch Tennessee is huge, the leverage of those dollars. And it's you should also know it's supported by your legislature. We know you know it's supported by our governor, but our legislature put $7 million into Launch Tennessee this past year to continue to use that leverage to help entrepreneurs and bring in new investment.
We are super grateful for that support. And on a personal note, as someone who has a lake house down at Tim's Ford and sits on I-24 every Friday trying to make sense of that traffic, I can think of no better study project than that. So let's go really to the main part of the day, and that is the vision. So we are at a inflection point. We've got this incredible demand now pushed on the EV side, but autonomous is not, you know, it's all part of this equation of where we're going on vehicles and the future of transit. We have all of these amazing resources. We've got leadership. What's the vision? And you know, President Boyd, I'd appreciate it from your UT perspective, and then from your just a member and leader in the state, in the country around this issue. I'd love to hear your vision of what's there, and then maybe some of the hurdles we've got to overcome to get there.
Yeah, first, I don't want to presuppose the vision, so I don't want to disappoint, but as I've experienced in the past, when I have a vision on my own before I talk to the customers, it's usually not a good one. So this time we're going to do it differently. I'm looking forward to what our consultants come back with after they've talked to all the people, many in this room and all across our state to get input. But I think maybe a couple of key comments. I think one of the things that's important to know is that our governor is behind this and the state of Tennessee is behind this. So it'd be really nice for us all to get together and have conversations about what we wish the state could do for us. But if the governor wasn't supporting this, then it would be fairly futile. But in this particular case, we've got the state of Tennessee committed to investing in this space and helping to create the infrastructure that we all need to be successful. So that's, I guess, a really important message. And the second is the University of Tennessee is also, hopefully by my being here, by all the teammates that I have here in the room, we're committed to doing our role. And we've got 5 campuses across the state of Tennessee. We oversee with our partners at Battelle, Oak Ridge National Labs. There's a tremendous amount of financial and physical and intellectual capacity at the University of Tennessee, and we're committed. It's one of our top goals this year. We're committed to helping our state become #1 in research around mobility. And so, again, I don't want to presuppose what the vision will be. I will say this, I don't expect it will be one single center for research. Someone asked me earlier today, would you imagine the center of excellence somewhere in our state? And I don't see it that way. I would imagine there'll be nodes in Nashville, maybe at Vanderbilt, at Oak Ridge National Labs, hopefully somewhere near Blue Oval City, maybe UT Martin. UT Martin and myself and some folks from TBR flew up to Dearborn about 2 months ago to visit some research facilities at Ford, and there's some conversations there about maybe trying to duplicate some of the research they're doing in Dearborn down and somewhere in West Tennessee near Blue Oval City. So my expectation would be that we'll have lots of partners at the table, and we'll have centers of excellence all across the state that all work closely together.
I will say we had the opportunity to have dinner together last night, and we were talking about the collaboration going on. And again, I've been involved in Launch Tennessee and its predecessor TTDC and efforts since '95, and I have never seen collaboration in that role as I'm seeing now. So, I mean, kudos to all of the parties, but super impressed by the number of institutions that are talking to each other about this one thing.
Actually, if I could just take a quick second and give a shout out to our partners at Vanderbilt. This isn't what you typically see from people from the University of Tennessee to brag about Vanderbilt, but I will say that the new chancellor, Daniel Diermeyer at Vanderbilt, I can't compare him to others, but I will say this, that he has determined that Vanderbilt will be engaged in the community and the state and take a leading role, not just be a great university within itself, but also to have an impact across the state. So we're really appreciative for their partnership. TBA and Oak Ridge National Labs, of course, have been key at every stage in the work we've been doing.
Fabulous. So, Commissioner, you are at the heart of all of this. Everything comes together as under you as you're looking and putting these pieces together and turning it into reality. Yeah. What is the vision?
Well, I think first, we're fortunate, as Randy said, to have a governor that understands infrastructure. I think he understands the significance of the issue we're talking about and its impact on the economic development and vitality of not just the urban areas in this state, but the rural areas as well, to be able to have access, to be able to get to those jobs, and the companies that we're attracting here to be able to have the workforce that they've got to have to be able to do that. And so I think if I had to say his vision for where we want to go is, in 2026, we're going to be in Tennessee the largest manufacturer of electric vehicles and batteries in this country, but we ought to be the leader of research and development as well. There's no reason why we can't own that space too. And so I think everybody in this room, along with the resources that we can continue to provide to keep that conversation going about how we lean into that space and how we own that space in the near future, and take the steps and set the strategy. Who would have thought we would be out here at Nissan doing what we're doing in the 80s? Who would have thought that we would be down in West Tennessee with Blue Oval? So listening to customers and setting the strategy, I think, is the direction we're going to go.
Fabulous. I think that sums up a whole lot. Unless there's a last word, maybe we have a few minutes for questions.
I would like one last word.
Sure.
So there may be some in the room that are thinking, okay, you're putting together this proposal, but you haven't talked to us. So I'd like to ask Victoria Hirschberg, who's now our Associate Vice President of, is Victoria in the room? Victoria's standing up there and waving. She's new to the University of Tennessee. She has been, for the last 10 years, working in ECD. And so I can tell you this, as Commissioner of ECD, as the Commissioner, you go and maybe have 3 to 6 dinners or meetings with the big OEMs, and when there's a big deal announced, we stand on the stage and cut the ribbon. But 12 hours a day for the entire period of time that you're working on it was usually Victoria, if it was in the automotive space, doing all the work. And so we're incredibly excited to have her on our team. She's leading this collaborative to be able, or helping coordinate this collaborative to put together a proposal for the governor. As I mentioned, we've already, in the last 24 hours, met so many people that we should have been talking to that we haven't. If you're one of those people, please reach out to see Victoria and make sure that we're also including your thoughts and ideas in anything that we propose. Thank you.
Fabulous. Commissioner, any last word?
No, thank you.
Perfect. Well,
Thank you.
if there are any questions, we are more than happy. We've got a few minutes. Got a couple mics out there, so yes, sir.
Good morning, and thank you all for being here. I'm Craig Phillip with Vanderbilt. And Commissioner, I did want to thank you on behalf of your two predecessors who were really responsible for creating TENNSMART 5 years ago, and arm twisting many of us to step up and join him to create the group that was responsible for this. So thank you.
Yeah, well, I'll mention them by name. So John Schroer, Commissioner for Governor Haslam, spent 8 years working on this topic. Many conversations with John over the last few years, and he was a tremendous believer in this space and was really at the forefront, not just here in Tennessee, but worked on a national level through AASHTO to bring this continually to light. And so thank you, sir, for mentioning that, because John played a tremendous role, not just getting this started, but even on a national level. So.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Thank you, gentlemen, for everything. It was a wonderful conversation. I learned a lot from it. My name is Nick Borrego. I'm a 25-year-old serial entrepreneur that has completely funded my organization, put several $100,000 into my technology to develop a smart mobility solution. And now we're looking to work with the state of Tennessee. We're actually in talks with the US DOT, partnerships with Verizon and other Fortune 500 companies. We are currently in the pilot testing phase. We're at a TRL level 4, moving to a TRL level 5, which is MVP. I want to know how a startup like myself is able to access these types of funds and opportunities and initiatives, because I have an incredible research team. I mean, ex-global head of Logitech, PhD, Silicon Valley engineer, created 200 plus products, sold 2 billion units of these products. But at the same time, I'm really working hard to work with the Tennessee Department of Transportation and the state to be able to do our pilots and be able to do our research and development, but we haven't had the greatest success at that. We have signed an LOI with the city of Sevierville. We're in talks with the city of Knoxville right now, city of Chattanooga, and some other cities as well. But how can someone like myself be able to have ability to access these types of funds to continue research and development?
Yeah, well, great question, and thank you for what you're doing. We need that innovation, and so we certainly, from the department standpoint, would love to meet with you. I'll be happy to meet with you afterward and find out who you've talked to or what you've done. I think, I don't know where you are in the stage of what product you have, but if you're actually at product stage at this point to be able to test, but we can help certainly with looking at that with you. But I think actually the Launch Tennessee is the place to go first. I don't know where you are from the funding standpoint, but Launch Tennessee is a proven entity that can help companies to get from that startup phase into full-blown deployment. So I would urge you to do that if you haven't, and we can help you direct to get to the right place.
Let me build on that just for a few things. TENNSMART, right? We have an event today where you have the ability to connect with a lot of people. One of the best things I think about Tennessee when we are competing for companies in the entrepreneurship space is the fact that we work so well together. We are a state poised to be at the top for R&D, yet it's so easy to connect. You meet 3 people and they'll be able to connect you with so many things. So hats off again to TENNSMART for putting together an event like this, because it allows those conversations to occur, and then we can facilitate it. Lindsay's here somewhere for Launch Tennessee, as are many others. There's great resources there. Oak Ridge ORNL has great resources, so let us help connect it all. That's the purpose of being here today, and thank you for raising your hand and asking a really, really good question.
Thank you. And again, thank you so much to TENNSMART. Gary Rawlings actually sits on my board, and he's been incredible. I've actually had conversations with TENNSMART. I'm a member of TENNSMART, and the organization is incredible. The opportunities that are provided are fantastic. So thank you so much, gentlemen.
Fabulous. All right. On that note, we will thank our two great panelists here for all of their efforts and for your insight and remarks, and look forward to the rest of the day where you get into some more of the details as to how the vision is playing out.
Thanks, Bruce.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Appreciate it.
Well, Bruce, so basically we don't have to work now.